This is called sticking with what you're good at, which was kind of the idea we had at the time, which probably it was shorthand for the team that's just sort of stuck. For our purposes and what I've been telling the panel, it's less than sticking what you're good at, is more developing added value services for your existing clients. And I think that's not just doing what you always do. It's deepening your understanding of the clients and your needs, and then the mechanics and the mental and strategic changes you need to make to start rolling those out. We have 2 accountants and 1 consultant who have all done this themselves and walked the walk. Starting over on stage right, we have Graham Lamont, who's the CEO of Lamont Pridmore up in Cumbria. Next, in the middle, is Simon Turner, who, again, interesting nomenclature, is the managing director of Seymour Taylor in Hemel Hempstead? High Wycombe, sort of home counties. And then just to my immediate right is consultant Mark Lloydbottom, who has spent many, many years advising firms precisely how to make those changes. This is going to be, I briefed the gentleman, this is going to be a very interactive session. I kind of said it's not a lecture, it's going to be more like question time, so I was going to take the role of David Dimbleby. But I also want you guys to take part, and we're all going to be sort of piping up at different points. So if you do want to ask a question as we're going along, please just put your hand up. We're all friends here, and we are sharing information, and we want this to be as relevant as possible for you. Once I ask you to ask the question, if you could stand up, because we're taping today, and we want to get your contribution to the session as well, and the gents' answers. So say it's going to be very interactive. Mark, maybe to stretch the analogy a bit, he's going to be like our analyst, like Mark Lawrenson, kind of coming in with the expert view of what's happening behind the scenes. And I'm just hoping with all the interaction, we will have to be quite quick that we don't eventually turn into the Jeremy Kyle show. So at a few points along the way, I will sort of stop and kind of move us on another step. But as I say, don't be shy. Join in the fun as well, and if you've got questions for these guys, put your hand up and you can put them straight to them. So that's the rough introduction. I guess starting with you, Graham, could you just start me off briefly by telling us about yourself and about about your firm?
Yes. Well, we're a small firm in Cumbria, in the Lake District. I took it over in the late 70s. We had 1.5 staff at that time. We've now got 8 offices and 53 staff, and we've developed a range of services during that time. I used to do a wee bit of lecturing and coaching other firms of accountants, probably around boot camp era with Paul Dunn and Rick, who's here today. Whereas people wanted to develop added value services, what I told firms they need to do is just improve the customer care program, and that's the first thing that we did. We've developed more services since then, obviously grown the firm. So our sort of unique selling points are now we've got to a stage where people are coming to us from other firms wanting a wider range of services. 20% of the practice is now financial services, so we've got 5 IFAs within the business. Probably 20% is also a virtual finance director, product and consultancy, and there's a wee bit more I'm talking about later on today on business advisory. And we do a bit of profit improvement stuff. So we're probably now 60% of the things we do are more added value. They're not price driven. We've just picked up a new client last week, £27,000 fee. We were 8,000 dearer than the competitor, but they chose us for the added value solutions we're going to provide to them. So the business is moving more that way. We're getting slightly larger clients now, but they want wider and more services. So the sort of my sort of starting point is to, if you're going to go on this journey, you first of all improve customer care. You also, I think you need to find out what you're good at, what you enjoy doing. If you've got 2 or 3 clients in a particular sector, you can develop a niche, because at 3 clients you're a world expert in that particular activity. So you're either going to go down the niche of the sector or the niche of the services, whether that's, and certainly I know payroll's way down on our sort of added value list, but actually payroll's growing significantly with auto-enrollment, etc. And certainly Xero and various online accounting products are essential. We're finding that we're being squeezed at the bottom end on price. We probably lose maybe half a dozen clients a year where we usually charge £1,200 and somebody else quotes £350. So I think there's a squeeze at the bottom end of unqualifieds and people working from home.
We can dole out the advice in smaller doses
so that's
as well.
where we
Let
are.
it sink in, because we want to hear from Simon about. Tell us about your firm and your.
Good morning, everyone. Good to see so many here this morning. Simon Turner, the company Seymour Taylor. It's quite different. When I was asked to take over as MD in 2009, our firm was founded in 1917. Very traditional firm, probably like a lot of you. But we're quite different in the way that we were actually taken over from the equity partners from our largest client, called the Hamden Group, which are actually based just around the corner. They specialise in the Lloyd's of London market, in run-off work and a lot of financial services. They were our largest audit client, and obviously we've got an audit company structure and a limited company structure. So it's quite different, but it's allowed us a lot of freedom, and myself and our team, where we're really able to provide a lot of succession, a lot of proper corporate structure, where we're not having a partnership meeting where we used to try and agree a lot of things very difficultly. And we've been able to move forward over the last few years, changing a lot of systems and processes. Picking up on what Graham said, personally I specialise in owner-managed businesses. Picking up what was my ideal client, these type of clients were willing to pay the right fee, they'd interact with you, the money isn't coming out of their pocket like an owner-managed business, and so I based a lot of my work on growth of the practice on that. And since then, value added has come from offering an outsourced service by our own staff, doing a lot of management accounts, getting to understand the clients and offering a wide range, almost consultancy, FD, etc., but coming down to know your clients. So we've gone from probably 5 partners, and we're now up to 7 partners, and our increase in turnover 4 years has been 50%, and profitability has massively increased. So that's where we're at the moment, looking at IT and lots of other things which will probably come out later.
Right, thanks. Before I introduce Mark, just two points. First, Simon and Graham are colleagues and companions on our journey right now today, but if you join us later on, it's going to get a bit tougher and tighter, because if I'm not mistaken, you're up against each other in the Practice Excellence Awards. So we have two absolute stars. They were both nominated last year, so they really do know what they're doing. And before I get to you, Mark, I just want to ask you this question as well as the audience. Do we need to actually discuss why you need to? Does everyone here accept that you do want to offer added value services? And do we need to discuss why you need to make that move? And do we need Mark maybe to give us a foundation of that? Or has everyone here accepted that is what you want to do, you want to go on? So everyone knows that's the direction. Anyone want to be told why you should make the move? Put your hand up if you do. Okay, right. Well, you have, for that one gentleman, if you can give a bullet point. But Mark, tell us about yourself and, again, answer that particular question, and we'll move on.
Thank you, John. Very briefly, although introduced as a consultant, I was in practice for 16 years in Bristol and built up a practice with 50 people in it. Then I decided I wanted a change of career, so I started Practice Track, which is a company that when I was running it was selling newsletters, brochures, budget reports to 1,500 firms. And then one day I woke up, if you're a firm owner here, you might be able to relate to this. I woke up at 3 o'clock one morning with that pit of the stomach feeling. That's the stomach feeling that actually doesn't enable you to go back to sleep. And my worry was that my paper business was going to be irrelevant in the future. And so 18 months later, I teamed up with SIFT, which is the host parent company of Accounting Web, and we launched Practice Web, a company which today has 700 firms on its platform. Let me just take issue. You might think this is semantics, but I was involved in 1998 with the 2005 report. I was involved with Mark Spofforth in the developing a profitable and sustainable practice. And would you believe I'm involved with the Institute currently? In February 2015, we will be launching tomorrow's practice report. And I'm the one voice that's been present in all three of those exercises. And I had to say, look back at what we said in 1998. And what we were saying, John, was that the future is in value-added services. At that time, I took advantage of my awareness of the marketplace, and we launched a product in Practice Track, helping people improve their profitability. And here's what we learned, and that is that there were not a long line of clients waiting outside the accountant's offices for value-added services. I then woke up one day, and the dust cart went past the end of my house, and the dust cart had this message on it: adding value to the community. At that point, I decided that using the term added value was absolutely a no-no. And so when I write and lecture, I always talk about extension services. And I came up with the terminology because it helps me understand that clients didn't automatically perceive that we were there to do strat planning, profit improvement planning, or even possibly financial services, even though there is a huge opportunity there. What I believe that extension services are, they're one small step service where frankly you have no competitors and the client automatically thinks that you are the core provider. So that would be VAT returns, online accounting, management accounts, and the sort of planning that they can relate to the accountants being the expert in. So that first thing, terminology. The second thing, let me tell you, I'm a great believer in 7 habits of highly effective people. Habit number 2, start with the end in mind. And what I would say to practices that maybe you think, well, I'm not quite as exceptional as the 2 gentlemen on my right. If you think that, you know, you're going to struggle to achieve what Graham has achieved over a long period of time, or what Seymour Taylor have achieved, there is a fairly authoritative report produced in America, an interfirm survey, which we don't have in this country, so I can only refer to America because there is no other model I can refer to. But in America, the 2014 surveys indicate this: 40% of revenue American firms generate from auditing and accounting, 40% from the jewel in our crown comes from tax services, and 20% from business advisory. Empirical evidence indicates that most accounting firms are probably generating less than 5% from anything that isn't compliance. And these two have outlined some of the steps they've taken and the success they've achieved, and what you have to figure out, because today is all about strategic thinking, because strategic thinking always precedes strategic planning. You have to figure out for yourself if you believe the message that you're going to hear during the day, and that's that the future is going to be different from the past. And you've got to figure out what you can deliver. But rather than create services and then sell them, you really need to be close to your clients to work out what is it that clients want. Forgive me, for those of you who are chartered accountants, and I'm going to hand back to John, there was an Institute committee meeting at Moorgate Place recently. The room was in stunned silence when we were talking about tomorrow's practice, and somebody said, "Do you think it would be a good idea if we asked clients what they want from us in the future?" And that's really important, and a message for you. Find out what your clients, and then deeply, deeply drill down into your brain and add in the capability to deliver a far deeper service than you are today. These two can put names and badges on those services. You two will be able to put your own. But clients' needs tomorrow will be different from today.
I'm just going to leap in, Mark, because I'm a writer. I loved your comment about language and terminology, and I just wondered if that resonated with you, Graham, and you, Graham, first, but then you, Simon. Did you change how you talk about your services and how you speak about the clients and present these to clients in conversations?
Yeah, well, what we have done is we've created what we call our clients' needs analysis sheet, which have got about 25 or 30 topics on in non-accounting language. And when we take over a new client, and when we're dealing with every meeting with a client, we have a standard agenda, and this forms part of that discussion. We normally send the agenda out a week before the meeting. We ask them what's keeping them awake at night, what's the most burning issue that they want to discuss. And they add that now. There's more and more of those clients adding 2 or 3 points to the agenda. So we actually talk about the things that they want to talk about, particular to their business.
But you also sort of put some ideas and put
Yeah.
some thoughts in their head that they may not know what that phrase stands for, but it's an
Yeah.
opportunity to ask
Yeah.
you, what was that? Sort of
Yeah, and
something?
I think, I mean, you know, as has been said, when we started this journey, because I was on similar groups to discuss this with the Institute, it was less than 10%, and it could even have been 5% of services that were provided in this area. Now we're seeing firms providing 60, 70% of these sort of services. The challenge as well for the firm is that we have to reinvent ourselves every year, because whereas 90%, when we started, 90% of our business came in every year because the books and records came in, we're now at a stage where only 40% come in every year, and we have to recreate that 60% again and again and again by encouraging clients to use additional services. So there's a sort of internal marketing drive now. So we've got an internal marketing strategy as well as an external marketing strategy, which covers this client needs analysis, the agenda, and talking to clients about what they want to buy. Because the trouble you've got, as has been mentioned, if you do this too early, nobody wants to buy the product. So you've actually got to actually talk to the clients and assess their particular requirements, because there may be a need for that service. You may see that they need to be improving profits or saving tax, but unless that turns into a want, and the cost-benefit analysis tips in your favour where they see the benefit. The other thing we do, which is unique,
Can we
is
hear how Simon,
Yeah,
sort of
sorry.
your language and approach to clients, did that change as you evolved these services?
I think very much so, and I'd encourage people, if you're using terminology, I'm pretty sure all of you, when you see a new client, are asking reasonably the same questions, but what you may not be doing is asking it year on year. We put that little note down of, are you married, and what's the inheritance tax, are your kids going to school, what's your planning, do you want to sell the business, is it a lifestyle, all these questions, what keeps you awake at night. These are burning questions, and then you really understand the client's business. The terminology is the same. It's how you present it. And then you're taking that information, as Graham said, and as we do, you're keeping that on file for the next meeting. The compliance is, hello, here's the compliance, we understand the figures, it's done. They're not bothered about that, and they don't really want to pay much for it. Now, you've got your planning for your school fees in 5 years' time. What are you doing about X, Y, and Z? That's what they really want to understand. But the terminology is sometimes, I think picking up what Graham was saying, is when the client's asking for something, sometimes they don't know what they actually want. And you can see what they need, and sometimes we give it too easily, and you've just given it away. Sometimes you've got to go through the process, you've got to understand, you've got to see, okay, I can see how this will work in 6 months, and you help them along that journey. We're all running our own businesses as well, and you can really, that's where the value add is, and then don't give it away for, that was an hour of my time.
Okay, we're going to come back to, I think, the mechanics of taking them on that journey and getting them from conceiving the need to actually being ready to buy it from you. But before we get into real nuts and bolts, Mark, you judged the entries from both these firms and other ones in the awards. Are there particular standout characteristics of the firms who are really good at doing, sort of developing new services and growing them?
Well, first of all, I didn't know that I was judging these two firms. There was quite a bit of comment on the feedback to the articles, which you may or may not have seen. But can I just share with you that as a judge, I am sent, I think, for each category I was judging, I think 10 submissions. And they come through to me as Firm A, Firm B, or Firm 10 or Firm 12, I think, this time. And then I spend somewhere in the region of 5 or 6 hours judging in 5 or 6 different categories. and each category has a score of 20, and it's 5 categories because the total that a firm can get is 100. I think there are 3 judges, and then the marks are all compared, and then I get a long phone call. But I cannot tell you that it's the most ethical process that Accounting Web engage in that I've ever really come across, and it's illuminating in as much as I could have kicked myself because I only realised I was looking at Graham's firm, and I know a little bit about your firm, Graham, when I saw the article. So I forget what the question is.
What were the characteristics that maybe struck you about? I think it was firm 112. Or
yeah, I was sort of primed on this question, the only priming I have been given. So I wrote down a few things, but before I go through them, just very briefly to pick up on what Simon said, I do believe that actually it's important to get in your practice a bottom-to-top approach to extension services. And here's how you do it. You go create a form. I call it an SEO form, which isn't what you might think. It's called Service Enhancement Opportunities. And you get your staff, when they are doing the tax returns or the accounts, to at least just simply tick a box alongside maybe 10, 15 or 20 services that you are able to deliver. And please note, this is important, deliver an ROI. Because one of the firms, might be you two, I don't know, one of the firms in their submission says our services deliver a 3.1 times return for the client. Now, as a judge, I'm not interested in whether it's 3.1, 2.5 or 4. What I'm interested in is they get it. We cannot live off the backs of our compliance work without having to recognise that anything else we do has to be delivering value to the client. So, and I think defining it by an ROI is quite important, because you can't ask the client to pay you 1,000 if they're not going to get a return of 2,500 or more. So here are some of the things that came out to me as being really important. They happen to be things I believe in most cases. Firstly, the successful firms that I rated highly were those that had a clear commitment to meeting regularly with clients. In particular, a monthly commitment. I was also very impressed by those firms where it was clear to me that they were getting paid monthly. I was less impressed with one firm that was saying we meet regularly, but their lockup was 50%. So they undid the value because they weren't effectively getting paid as they were delivering the work. Thirdly, I was impressed with those firms that had clear KPIs, not just on lockup or fees, but such things as the ROI and the efficiency. I think one firm had improved their efficiency from 75 to 92%. Again, the numbers are irrelevant. It's what people are monitoring, because remember, you manage what you monitor. The next thing, across all the categories I judged, some firms are clearly getting into it, some firms are clearly well advanced, but IT initiatives are taking place across the whole of the profession. Actually, one firm that really impressed me, and you'd think, why would you be impressed by that? One firm actually started off a couple of sections by admitting their failings and shortcomings. And you wouldn't think that somebody submitting something to win an award would impress a judge when they start off with the negative and then they go on to the positive. And then the last thing, before I hand back to you, John, is there is very clear evidence, and this is what consultants have been teaching for the last 25, 30 years, about the importance of specialisation. And remember, you either specialise by industry sector, and I probably would take exception with Graham, even if it was just a joke, but actually you're not a specialist when you've just got 3 clients. You're a specialist when you've got a partner at least doing 50% of his work for that, and the partner having a team and a clear evidence and interest in the specialisation. So for example, I have one client where they have 6 partners and they're in a particular industry. The partners are all doing 1,600 chargeable hours. Oh, with one exception. Managing partner, 1,942 hours at the highest rate in the firm, fully recoverable. So you either specialise by sector or by service. And one of those two you should be thinking about seriously, and possibly both. John.
Okay, so Mark has given us the blueprint. and sort of the common characteristics. I hope, don't know how realistic they are as objectives for you, but I'd like to get, before Graham gets back and we get into a bit of the Jeremy Kyle punch, maybe we'll go to Simon to calm, or not calm things down, but get us into the mechanics. Can you tell us, about a particular initiative at your firm that's really had perhaps maybe the biggest impact on both on your clients and on you, and kind of where that grew from, and how you take us through how you built it up and built it into a specialist added extension service?
Well, I'd probably start on a rounded more than a specific service. I think when I took over 4 years ago, and my colleagues will know me saying about excellent client service, but it was really just getting the culture from top down across the firm, providing the excellent client service. The usual management talk about under-promising and over-exceeding expectations. Then we were looking at surveys, which we've done with Counterab, and we do a yearly survey continually with our clients, making sure that a lot of clients, we understood them and when did we meet them. So it's almost a whole overview of the excellent client service we wanted to give. Some clients don't want to be met monthly, so some clients don't want to be met at all, and they want a basic standard, so let's not meet them. And that's fine, as long as they're happy, and let's spend the time with the clients who do. The biggest thing that we probably did was actually stratify the clients. Now, this wasn't just on A clients or our best clients, best recoverable, all the rest of it. It was also very important to us about referrals, both between clients and for staff. We've got probably 50% of our new staff over the last few years from our client referrals of staff. And also referring to each other. We've created a very good community within our clients. So I get all of our staff, when the client asks for some information, whether it's a relocation support, IT support, consultancy, look at our database of clients, refer them in. You build a very, very strong community which are willing to refer you on to others.
Can you take us into maybe a specific initiative that kind of led that?
Yeah.
You've built the base, from the kind of an aha, we could do something.
Yes,
here.
I think you wouldn't be here if you weren't wanting to learn and network and understand your businesses and how to do it better. Again, it comes back to what we were saying earlier by Mark, was spending time with the clients. So myself spent a lot of time, and then a lot of the junior staff coming through, all of the contacts we had. So we got our marketing people to link in and work out who we're giving referrals to, where we're getting them back, measuring the work. Then the next phase was, okay, where can we pass the work to? We're monitoring that. And then, in the modern era, with social media, we're putting it out there, they're retweeting it, and they go, oh, this is good for them to work for, they're looking for us, rather than looking for themselves. And that's the first thing we try and do, is how can we help the client, not how can we help ourselves. A specific example is an Italian subsidiary set up about 8 years ago, and I invested a lot of time going to Italy to see them. Didn't make any money on that at the time. Went for a big merger about 1.5 years ago, and they came to us as the trusted advisor on, okay, we're coming and setting up bigger in the UK for tax reasons. And I ended up referring a lawyer client, a relocation specialist, a property specialist, IT. It was great. It was all working with each other. Ideal situation. They don't all work like that, but the goodwill generated from that has been massive. And we've got other referrals, and we've made probably 110,000, 100% recoverable consultancy type of work. I was charging my time for sitting in a meeting with the local Thames Valley Chamber, our IFA on setting up their payroll, a property person, a relocation person. I wasn't doing accountancy. I was just putting people together. And they were paying my full rate chargeable. And that's a good example.
It's a golden circle.
It was. And we've all got it, but we don't use it because we're too busy going compliance work and I'll concentrate on that. A bit like the guy said earlier, you've got to go be bold and get out there.
Yeah. So that was your kind of germ, was just investing the time and gaining the background.
Investing the time and understanding, as Graham was saying earlier, understanding the client wanted something, and I actually thought, we can help you far better than that. And once they brought into that, oh, can you help us with this? Oh, can you help us with that?
Okay, Graham, what about you? Sort of, you've got some interesting specialisations, or I'm sure you have more than 3 people, 3 clients. Again, can you take us back to the point at which the seed was planted, and tell us how you've grown, particularly the one with the most impact on your firm?
Well, I think it started by understanding the clients, because obviously asking them what services they required, finding out which sectors we did more work in, to create a sector specialism. So we specialise in the tourism and hospitality sector, even though it's only 11% of the Cumbrian economy, which is surprising. 22% is manufacturing, which is interesting from a Lake District perspective. And then we also developed financial services from the same situation in the early 80s, where we were trying to protect the clients from being sold products that really they shouldn't have been sold for, more for commission purposes rather than the needs of the clients. So it started from there. Then if we take financial services, that's now 20% of our practice with 5 IFAs. And we, the way we've developed things is we always think before a client meeting, we train the team and the MDs that run our offices that if this was your best friend, what's the next thing that they should do in their business to take either the business forward or the family or the personal situation forward. And that's how we develop the services and the products. And that's equally applied to the finance director, virtual finance director product. Came actually, we had quite a small practice that virtually specialised in that activity.
Did you seek them out because of that specialisation, or was it a serendipity?
I think it was just serendipity. They recognised us. The guy who ran the practice, I'd known for maybe 10 or 12 years in the profession. He had a large client which he sold, and that client wanted him to be chief executive, so he wanted to come out of the profession altogether. We then took over and didn't realise that probably 90% of the practice was a virtual finance director product. We then built on that. We've added now Profit Sense, which is a benchmarking report. We've added a competitor analysis report. We just took over a new client who runs 11 McDonald franchises. He wants us, because their internal benchmarking information is phenomenal in terms of waste and cost per hour and various other internal indices. But what he wanted was to benchmark himself against maybe 5 or 6 of his other franchisees around the country to see how much money they made rather than how much their benchmarking report was in. And he was surprised. So we've now helped him increase his profits by 50% over the last 2 years. So it's quite a sort of interesting journey.
Do you want to sort of come back at Mark a little bit on the point about what point does an extension service sort of become viable? You know, stops being just the time you've invested in the one Italian client and becomes a service line, and how do you push it into that viability?
Well, I mean, I agree with Mark. Really, what the principle is, unless you've got a full-time person doing that specialty, you're not going to develop it well. Now, we're quite a small firm, so we haven't quite got there yet. But our challenge over the next 2 or 3 years is actually to get those specialists where they wake up every morning thinking of the specialty.
You want to come back there?
I'm conscious of the time. So this is probably my last contribution. I'm going to give you some numbers to think about and process. And incidentally, you can flex my numbers a little bit. Since the start of the global recession, I read there's about 700,000 new businesses that have started in the UK. This is my percentage. You do what you want with it. Arguably, maybe no more than 10% of those people have to have an accountant, and they are probably less than 1% needing an audit, and that's being incredibly optimistic. So that's the first thing. So people are learning to sort of put in 3-line accounting with HMRC. They're learning to do their own tax return, because these are people who spend their lives doing this, and so go to see the bank manager to find an accountant. Where are you from? So that's the first thing. The second thing is the total wealth of this country is thereabouts to £7.5 trillion, of which 85% of it is in the hands of baby boomers, people who are sort of 55 and older. So at the bottom end, work out for yourself some of the services that you could offer those 700,000 people if it's not the traditional stuff. And secondly, there is a massive unprecedented cascade of wealth. And here's the issue, which I face, and maybe one or two who are approaching the age I'm at, which is 62. Okay, I'm relatively asset rich and could be cash poor. could be. So how do you help that generation with their estate planning and what have you? And finally, and forgive me, John, because I know Xero are partners in this today, but here's my observation as a consultant looking from 5,000 feet up, not 30,000 feet. Today, Xero appear to be the friends of the profession. Question, will they be our friends tomorrow? Are they really looking to hold hands and engage with accountants? Well, maybe yes today, but what's the long-term plan? Here's my observation, not just about Xero. Technology companies are taking a grip of our businesses and enabling people to find and access information that needed technical skills that you and I had yesterday. We need to find the space that we can occupy in our clients' lives that's different. I came to London yesterday. I took an Evening Standard off the stand without paying. 5 years ago or 10 years ago, I had to pay 50 pence. Oh, the other day I was listening to my 78 records, and then I was listening to my LPs, and then I was listening to cassettes, and then I was listening to CDs, and now I just download this stuff. And I would say to you, having been in this profession, wait for it, 7 decades, and there will not be an 8th, John, having been in this profession 7 decades, we are at the crossroads like never before. And you either believe it and do something about it, or you don't believe it, in which case do like most firms who didn't make the transition from 2005 report and profitable and sustainable practice, and wait for tomorrow's practice report and see what we say there.
Okay, I don't want to cut you off. I think you were building towards a big finale there, Mark. But I've just been informed that we'll come to you and say that we've actually got a little 15-minute extension on this session. We started late, so we will be going to 1:45. So I hope you didn't give it all away. You're gonna have to take them back to the mountaintop.
I won't be. I'm not in charge of this, but could we actually get some feedback from those of you like these two who are in practice?
How do you, I think you're saying about going with technology and changing and everything else, how do you feel about big companies getting their clients to put everything on the cloud, and then the guys in India sorting it all out, and all they're doing, the big boys are going over it saying, yeah, that's okay, job done.
And are you specifically referring to PwC and KPMG have just moved into this market in the past couple of weeks?
Because these are you're talking about the firms who can't find £263 million worth of fraudulent entries, and have the audacity to suggest they're going to sue the directors for misleading the auditors. Oh well, how about the auditors who couldn't have the? Okay.
So,
It is going to happen, isn't it?
I think the geographic boundaries that you and I saw yesterday are evaporating before our eyes, and you've only got to look at one or two of the firms who are in the award program to see how they are offering their services, at least across the whole country. And who knows? And Indian firms, you probably wouldn't even know it was an Indian firm. They will be there on the web.
You haven't got a problem with the language barrier, because it's just figures.
Or the training, because
But-
guess what? They're UK trained chartered accountants.
yeah. What I think the phrase I heard about these big firm moves is it's imagine £150 for KPMG, PwC. It's the power of the brand will just sweep into the marketplace. I think what they don't have is the things everyone here probably has is the personal relationship you will have with the clients, and that kind of is your brand value. And I think in your locales, if you really know your clients, if you've built that understanding relationship, I don't think someone's going to be sort of, because they're probably going to pay the Big Four the same or maybe a bit more that they pay you. As long as your brand and your values, you know them and you've built it on that, I think you can defend yourselves. But how about Graham? Do you sort of sense that as a threat?
Well, I think
How do you fight it?
I agree. I think it's a threat at just the compliance service. I mean, we're seeing people outsourcing, paying a chartered accountant in India £14 an hour online. Crunch is now one of the top 30 firms in the UK, just got its 5,000th client. No meetings, no face-to-face meetings, £59 a month for accounts, tax return, CT 600, The Generation Y, we talk about the baby boomers, and I'm one of them. The new generation doesn't, you know, if you analyse or talk to youngsters these days, the millennials, born before 81, they avoid client meetings. They're online, they're in the cloud, they can do Skype, they don't need a personal meeting. So I'll say that's the challenge in the compliance area. I think at the higher value services we provide, I think it's still face to face. So I think if you position the firm well, you won't get squeezed at the bottom end. I mean, that's where Tesco is at the minute. It's been squeezed by Aldi, apart from not being able to add up the final results. They've been squeezed by Aldi and the cheaper end. They're dropping sales. The cheaper ones are growing. So I think that's the challenge. And I think I also agree, as Sage did, how long will it be before Xero add a tax compliance and a filing, and it's all done without even needing an accountant?
So Simon, what about you? Do you sense the weight of the big four looming up? You know, the Hewington Valley.
No, not necessarily. But
how will you be defending yourselves?
I come back down to looking at your clients and understanding them. I think we've already picked out those clients which are at risk of going off and doing it in the cloud. When we do a proposition to a client, we try and be very clear and understanding them. Do they want meetings and try and tailor that service? The vast majority of our clients want to meet face to face. It's the trusted advisor. It's a phone up. I've had someone just, hand in their resignation. What am I going to do here? Can you help us there? It's the understanding. And the SME owner-managed businesses are the baby boomers who have the expertise and the money. The next generation, a lot of them we're seeing, don't want to be in the business, or mum and dad don't want them in the business. So our challenge is trying to get the succession for our firm to keep them involved. And therefore, there's another service that we're looking at on exit planning, succession planning. We've done a lot of work on it ourselves. But for the small compliance work, if I'm honest, I'm really trying to stay away from that, because there's no money in it and we can't compete. So that's why added value is so important.
With the succession planning, do you sort of help the company owners to make the exit? Have you taken the step further of helping them choose and develop their successors and potentially building the relationship with the people coming in? So again, so that's all part of the package you're assembling?
It's vital, and I come back, we're running our own businesses. We've done a huge succession plan ourselves. It's a major issue for our firm, and I'm sure it is for a lot of others. Use what you're learning and what you're doing. Empathise with your clients. And again, they're willing to pay for that. Their tax return, they want to pay a million, a few £100 here or there. So it's trying to understand, and where we've had a lot of problems is where mum or dad doesn't want it to go to son because son's not interested, and that's where we're trying to help them, whether it was with corporate finance or trying to get them involved. There's a lot of white elephants in rooms, and our job is to identify them and get them to talk about it.
Yeah. Okay, we've got a question. First one is lady in pink. We'll come to you next time.
We deal primarily with Generation Y, and we really struggle to get them to pay for added value. They just can't see it. And have you got any ideas how we can somehow reach out to them and get them to see the added value?
Okay, it's on. In 60 seconds. Forgive me for saying this. The profession is still billing based on 20th century principles, and we're now 14 years into the 21st century. You go and buy a phone, and of course you don't meet Mr. O2 or Mr. Vodafone, you just automatically sign a direct debit. And the bottom line is that we need to identify the compliance work, get that paid 75% in the accounting year, and 25% after the accounting year or thereabouts. Because we are the only business. If your client has 1,000 business suppliers, you are the only supplier that doesn't want the money paid in the year, give or take 30 or 60 days. So the profession has got some fundamental problems with its pricing model. Get the compliance money paid as it should be in the year to which it relates, and free your clients' thinking and yours when it comes to selling and pricing for other work. Because you, as an accountant, could be reluctant to sell the client something else when you've already got lockup for last year's accounts and what have you. So we need to change the pricing system, and there's sessions about that coming.
Simon, you I don't want to make too many assumptions, but you look to me a little bit closer to the Generation Y thing than some of us here. So, and particularly, you know, I was going to ask you about your succession package. So if you have started to connect to people in that generation, how do you, again, get them to start thinking and taking on your extra services?
I totally relate to that. It's extremely difficult. And where we've also struggled is you're sitting there, you're trying to have the meeting and give the value, and sometimes they're not even engaged. And that's the hardest part. But again, in some of those scenarios, you've got to just use your experience and try and put it in layman's terms of what it really means to them. I think, as Mark was saying earlier, what is this going to mean? You're going to get your Ferrari, or is this going to mean school fees? And try and find a way to actually properly relate to them in their understanding. Is it freeing up their? I mean, for that generation, as far as I see it, it's time. It's free time. It's doing what they want to do and having freedom, generally. So if it means you're going to earn X money, or I'm going to save you tax, so therefore you can spend more time surfing the web or whatever it may be, or on your business, they'll relate to that. They're not going to relate to the old-fashioned ways, as Mark was also saying, in paying and the way you deal with them and interact with them. And that's why when we stratify them, it's not just on A and B and in fees, it's on how they want to be communicated to. I think, and I may be totally wrong, I think in time, as they mature and as a lot of knowledge and wisdom falls out, face-to-face meetings are always going to be there. It's happening in the industry already. And that's what you've got to keep trying to push for, even if it's difficult.
Graham, how do you connect with the younger generation?
Well, I don't. My son does. He looks at the Carlisle office. He's in his early 30s, so he's on the cusp of Generation Y. He explains it all to me. But an interesting book, Spin Selling. The strategy is to get the problem that they need to solve to be perceived so painful that they're prepared to pay. But you've got to paint the pictures, as has been said, as to what they want to achieve, whether that's time or leisure or something that that they can connect with. So it is a selling skill, but I think it is more difficult with that age group.
Okay, we had a question at the back there, the gentleman in the blue jumper.
While the panel have made a number of interesting points.
Oh, yeah. Could you stand up even, or so you can get your full face? Yeah.
While the panel have made a number of interesting points, as a sole practitioner, I don't really feel they're quite talking to me. Because talking about corporate finance and trips to Italy to see clients and doing other things is just completely beyond the realm of where I work. So were there people that came forward in terms of the process of the award? Were there sole practitioners in the mix? And also, have you got a lesson or some ideas on how you can try and encompass all the things you've suggested that can work for a sole practitioner? Thank you.
I think that was my next question.
Yeah. I think you could, if you wanted to, and it would be quite acceptable. One of the things I ask people to do when I'm consulting is wind your life forward to 65. And at the age of 65, think, what is it when I look back at my career? I wanted to be an entrepreneur and build different businesses. But my accountant is here today, and he's 15 years younger than me, and he is absolutely happy being a sole practitioner, doing the work for the little people that he serves and what have you. Has no great ambitions. And actually, in spite of what the Institute of Chartered Accountants was saying 20 years ago about the day of the sole practitioner being over, I have never believed that message, and I think you don't need to take too much notice of anything we three are saying. If you decide that your life's objective at the age of 65 is to look back doing the things you've been doing, I think you might need to do them a different way. So when we started, we had like ETBs and what have you, and now they're probably history, and some people who are younger are saying, what's an ETB? So you might need to do it in a more technological, different way. And also, from the point of view of personal progress, we need to deepen our skills. And you need to study 100, 125 hours a year. And you've got to choose what you do. And I think the word business advisory is a misleading term because I can't define it. And certainly Graham has defined it in many different ways. So I think we need to be careful about global terms that actually are confusing to understand. So you need to work out what it is that you're going to think as you look back at 65. but you need to accept that probably some of the services you're offering today won't be available tomorrow. So work out what your service proposition is. We're a profession with a lag. So you don't have to be at the leading edge. Incidentally, Tesco's have a lag, so do Sainsbury's. So you can learn from other people like Graham and Simon and others and decide where you want to get into. But you should never feel that you are failing or that you're not doing what you should do or that other people are using a different language. If you have decided that by the time you get to 65, you can describe your life's journey, if that satisfies you, floats your boat, as they say, then be happy with that and don't let other people like us make you feel as though you're not going on the right path.
Jim Lawless this morning said, you've got it's all about taking that first step. Now, you guys are much more experienced at this than some of the sole practitioners. So can you help the gentleman there with maybe, what would you suggest is his first step? He's going to do it tomorrow, leave, what would you say he does first?
Well, I was that soldier for 10 years. So I was a sole practitioner for 10 years with 1.5 staff. I worked 85 hours a week for the first 4 or 5 years. So I can appreciate the difficulty in having any capacity to develop new products and services and change. But I think the things that I would concentrate on is understanding the clients really well. That the research that's done on sole practitioners, clients love you. You are close to them. You meet them much more frequently than the larger firms. 80% of them really like you as an individual. So the chance of them changing accountants is very low. So you've got a wonderful opportunity as their trusted advisor. What I would do is take the courage and sack the 25 worst clients who either don't pay or you don't like or the staff don't like. That gives you more time to spend on the clients who really want to see you but you're too busy. And I think the recommendation I make is just get closer and closer to the client. They'll tell you what they want to pay for and get rid of the clients who don't pay, don't appreciate you, you don't like them, and then they'll emerge either a service line or a sector that you enjoy doing. And I think it's more enjoyment and passion and interest and skill and what you can do. I think if you can do things well, surprisingly, you do well at them. So deepen that understanding, I think.
That's a pretty practical one-off start tomorrow thing. Do you hear the tiger in your head? The voices talking to you saying you can't possibly do that? You think you might think brave enough to take that step?
Embrace technology and trying to push my clients onto Xero and free agent. I get a lot of referrals actually that way. People ringing me out of the blue saying, I saw your name on this website, how about that? I haven't thought about the idea of sacking 25% of my clients. But no.
25, it goes up from there.
Right. But it's an interesting concept in terms of the ones that aren't generating sufficient fees and it's just a process, and maybe you think you've moved up beyond that and actually want to add or create the added value to the other clients at the expense of the clients who you're just doing compliance for. Yeah. Thank you.
So Simon, Graham may have stolen one of your toys there. So what would
absolutely.
your first step be for this
I
gentleman?
totally endorse everything that Graham said. We actually went through the process 4 years ago, and the tiger was there. It was worrying, but the feedback from some of the staff, some of the clients that moved on, was really surprising. Even though I thought, this will be good, it made a big difference. We're probably now at a stage we need to start doing it again. So we did 3 years ago, and then we grew with a better type of client for us. There's a lot of work we give to a lot of sole practitioners locally because it doesn't quite fit with us, and we're quite honest about that, and we've got good relationships. I think there's a ton of work out there for you. Clients love it. New clients I go and see, if it's a good local sole practitioner, I know I've got a hard job, unless they're a really fast-growing company.
What I do, I send my worst client to my nearest competitor. In fact, I persuade them. I don't sack them. I say, I really think this chap or this lady is the best possible accountant for you. Yeah. Go and give them a ring. And they'll suit you much better than us. Then we have cream cakes. Everyone gets cream cakes when we sack a client. And just before I came away, I got the next 25 list. Okay. So we do it. Well, I was just hungry for money. Yeah. That's the trouble. The sole practitioner,
that's the voice.
You just want you want money, you want clients. How could you possibly sack a client?
Okay, we've got to wind up. Mark, I guess for the expert analysis, it falls to you. These two have given a really good practical idea of okay, you've chosen the 25 people, and maybe you've gone through it. That's quite a painful process itself. What would be the second step for someone who's taken that route? What can they do next to build on that?
Okay.
And if you wind it up for us.
On my seminars, I ask this question. How many of you have an up-to-date business plan? Now, I could actually ask you to put hands up. Empirical evidence indicates that less than 40% of accountants have anything resembling a business plan. Here's what I would say to you. I can't handle lots of paper. Please take note. We got 3 pages of briefing for this session today. I love things on 1 page. And I would just suggest that between now and Christmas, you absorb what's going on here. So take on board the things that you're hearing, take on board the things that you think, and then create a 1-page plan. And included in that plan, if I could just respond to the conversation between you, sir, and Graham, is here's one recommendation I give my clients, and that is set a minimum fee. And if you want to work out what the minimum fee is, list out all your clients' fees from top to bottom, look at the last 10 clients, go to the 11th one up, and that's a good starting place for your minimum fee. And maybe, Graham, if you'd have done that, 1 or 2 of your clients you wouldn't have taken on. It's a bold step, but you will free up the resources. Your staff will be happy because the people at the bottom are the ones who whinge about the fees. It's just a strange law.
Okay. Thank you, Mark. We have to wind up. Before I do, I think they spoke for themselves brilliantly. One thing from today and from the Practice Excellence Judging Awards, which, by the way, we have small firm, which is 1-2 partners. There's medium firms that are from 2 to 7, which these 2 firms are part of, and then there's 8+. So there's 3 categories. The one thing that came through all the entries that really struck was, whatever their size, the accountants who seem to get it are the ones who actually bother to apply their professional skills to their own business. That's really common. So heal thyselves, accountants. I'd like to thank our panel. That's Graham Lamont, Simon Turner, and Mark Lloyd-Bottom for a really fascinating thing. I wish we had another half hour we could go. So